What up, everybody? We're down to the final episode of BMF Season 4, and the big question that still remains is this going to be the final episode of the series? Because a few months ago, after Big Meech was seen in pictures with Rick Ross, 50 Cent posted on IG that there would be no next season of BMF. But with that said, there's still been no official word from Starz, one way or another, whether this will be the final episode of the series, or if there will be a fifth season or potentially BMF spin-offs, creating a BMF universe similar to the Power universe, like 50 Cent had teased before, as it was supposed to be called BMF Immortals. And because on the current BMF timeline, they're only in the year 1995, possibly 96, there's still a whole lot more story to tell, considering the BMF run lasted until around 2005. So really, BMF seasons 1 through 4 could actually be considered the origin story, and the time that's still remaining on the timeline would be considered the peak of the story, because that's when a lot of the drama unfolds. A lot of people believe that after season 4, Meech and T will be recast with the older versions of Meech and T, and that would make sense considering Meech was 37 years old at the time of the indictment, and Little Meech is only 25 years old right now. But at the same time, Starz might want to continue to use Da Vinci and Little Meech for continuity purposes, regardless of the age differences, similar to how they recast Mackay Curtis for Power Origins, despite the massive difference in height between him and 50 Cent. And with that said, I think the transition that's about to take place from Raising Kanan to Power Origins could be similar to the transition that could potentially take place in BMF if the series continues. Another potential example could be Power transitioning to Power Book 2, meaning if the series does continue, there will be some significant changes moving forward. And I believe one of the biggest differences in the series moving forward is that the Detroit storylines are going to be coming to an end at the end of Season 4. Episode 9, we saw Boom ram his car into Keisha's, putting her in the hospital. Something that, like I've said over and over again, happened in real life. But right after that happened is when T and Tonisa moved to LA. And like I said, the current timeline's around 95 or 96, but in real life the accident with Tonisa and her husband Harold, who Boom is based off of, didn't happen until later on around 99 or 2000. So the reason why I think they went ahead and got that storyline out of the way in Season 4 is because they're wrapping up the Detroit storylines all together, with T and Markeisha most likely going to be based out of California if the series does continue. So with that said, the biggest change I believe we'll see moving forward, if the BMF series continues in some type of way, either with another season or with spin-offs, is that the Flannery family, Charles, Lucille, and Nicole, will no longer be series regulars. But with that said, I do still think they'll potentially pop up for a scene or two here or there. Similar to in Power Book 2 after Season 1, Tasha St. Patrick was no longer a series regular and only made guest appearances. Keeping in mind what the Starz CEO said a little over a year ago, around the time it was announced that Season 4 would be Book 2's final season, that it's more cost effective for the network to cancel a series after Season 3 or 4 than taking a character from that series and making a spin-off based on that character. The main reason being the contract negotiations reopen at that point. In addition to the Flannery family story most likely coming to an end at the end of Season 4, like I said, I think that the accident with Boom and Keisha took place earlier than it did in real life as part of wrapping up the Detroit storyline. I also think this is why Lamar and B. Mickey were both brought back for Season 4, being the final chapter in Detroit. So I feel like Episode 10 will most likely be the last time we see B. Mickey and Lamar on a BMF screen. Either though with Lamar, I'm 50-50 because of the fact that 50 Cent did tease on social media that there will be a Lamar spinoff. So part of the reason why I think they might have brought Lamar back for Season 4 was to reintroduce his character to set up his spinoff. Sticking with the idea of BMF spinoffs potentially coming after Season 4, one potential way this might happen is that Meech and Terry might each get their own spinoff respectfully. Because like I talked about in the video I made yesterday, we're getting to the point where Meech and T are about to start going their separate ways and doing their own thing. Both still having the same plug and some elements of the business still being shared. But both brothers on different coasts doing their own thing until T ultimately rebrands his crew to be called 263. So if they go that route, a Terry spinoff would be based on the West Coast, while Meech's would be in Atlanta, with the two brothers crossing over on each other's show from time to time. But even if they do continue on the same show, I still expect it to be from two separate perspectives with two different storylines, because I don't think we'll see Meech and T working together on a regular basis like we've seen them do throughout the first 4 seasons. Other characters out of Detroit whose story will most likely be wrapping up at the end of season 4 is T's baby mother LaWanda's, and with Nikki's storyline most likely coming to an end, so will Breeze's. Like I said, Keisha will go to LA with Terry, and Hoop will most likely go also. And that's pretty much it for Detroit. They've already started to get rid of that storyline little by little, with characters dying out, going to prison, or being written off the show. Then bringing back Lamar, B, Mickey, and Boom in season 4 to conclude the Detroit storyline. Even Sterling Black only's made 2 appearances so far this season. So like I said, we'll see T and Keisha's story continue the next phase of BMF in LA, and most likely Hoop will be with them. As for Meech, his Atlanta crew's been completely wiped out at this point, and the only characters who I think will continue into the next phase of BMF with Meech is Tina, who I believe is supposed to be Meech's assistant, Yogi, like I talked about the other day, who was with Meech all the way until the end, and Ashley, who I believe will also be with Meech until the end, because I believe Ashley is based off Lil Meech's mother, Tara. And moving forward, if the series does continue, we know one person who will have a key role in the show is Chad Brown, aka J-Bo. So the BMF storyline will continue out of St. Louis as well. And 50 Cent even teased about a J-Bo spinoff at one point in time. And moving forward, as Meech begins to rebuild his crew, a lot of his people will come from the West Coast, gang members from the LA Crips. And like we saw Meech and T try to start a record label in season 4, Stomping Ground Records, when they signed Purdy, but ultimately ended up disagreeing about whether they should continue with that or not. Later on, Meech will start another label, BMF Entertainment, without Terry, when he'll connect with Blue Da Vinci. Another character who will also be around until the end is Detective Bryant. And with that said, 50 also teased a BMF spinoff from law enforcement's point of view, similar to The Wire. So because there's still a lot of story to tell, I do think that the BMF series will continue one way or another, whether it's through another season or with spinoffs. But it'll be revamped with significant changes moving forward. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.